Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. So since this is basically the official Blood Angel week because the Blood Angel Codex, or should I say supplement, drops tomorrow, I wanted to make a video on Chapter Master Dante and explain why he hasn't crossed the Rubicon Primaris. This is one of the biggest questions I get when I talk about Blood Angels, when I talk about Dante and his future with the new lore. So let's just jump in and let's get talking. Please be aware we are going to be covering Darkness in the Blood spoilers, so if you haven't read that book, if you're currently reading that book, then please turn off this video now unless you want to be spoiled. Now, after the devastation of Baal, Dante and all the successor chapters are basically healing after their great war with the Tyrannid threat. For those of you who don't know what happened at the end of that book, Rebooted Gilliman turned up with a massive fleet and he kind of defeated the rest of the Tyrannid force. You can kind of put it down to the Great Rift and Carbander as well, but the long story short, he gave the gift of the Primaris to the Blood Angels and their successors, and their lines have basically been refreshed. They've been made anew. So all the chapters that were nearly at the end, that only had like a few hundred battle bubbles left, they have received the Primaris and they are now in the ranks of the successors and the Blood Angel forces. Now, one of the most important things to come out of the meeting with Gilliman and Dante is that Gilliman named Dante his Lord Regent in the North. Basically, he is the commander of the North. I like to call him the King of the North. That's my little nickname for him. Basically, his word is law. No matter what chapter you belong to, no matter what gene lineage you belong to, if Dante gives you an order, you have to follow that order, because it's basically an order from Gilliman coming from Dante, because it's Gilliman's law where he's put Dante in that position. So Dante is the ruler of the northern sector at this time. Now, when it comes to Dante and becoming a Primaris Marine, a couple of interesting things we have to think about here, and this is mentioned in Darkness in the Blood. So a few months after the devastation of Baal, Baal itself is growing into its own little power now. You can kind of call it like the capital of the North. Like, they're making this huge star base, which is in the shape of an angel, which is like miles long and stuff. It sounds incredible. But one of Belisarius calls men, or what I should say men, one of his servos called Cuvo 87. He's kind of like Belisarius calls second in command, comes to Baal with some new technology and he wants to speak to Dante about it. And this technology is the Rubicon Primaris. At this moment in time, we don't have the means of crossing the Rubicon Primaris where firstborn Marines can become Primaris Marines. All they have is a technology to make Primaris from young children, as they would, with firstborn Marines and stuff like that. So he's bringing this new technology to make the firstborn Marines into the Primaris Marines. So Cuvo 87 sits down with Dante and explains to him about, crossing the Rubicon Primaris. Dante speaks to him about like who's crossed, and he does mention Calgar. Calgar was one of the first ones to cross. Now they have like this Council of the Blood where they talk about all this stuff, and Dante stands up and says, right, I am going to become a Primaris Marine, because there's a lot of tension at the moment between Primaris and Firstborn. When you look at the Primaris Marines that have slotted into the Blood Angels, they're not really Blood Angels. Yes, they have the gene lineage of Sanguinius, but they haven't been raised on Baal. They don't have the Baal customs. They don't have, the Blood Angel customs, and that goes the same with the successor chapters. Even though they have that lineage of Sanguinius, they're not really from that chapter, because they've just been slotted in straight from the Indominus Crusade, right from Gilliman. So you can understand why a lot of firstborn Marines, the ones who survived the devastation of Baal, don't really trust the Primaris Marines. They don't really take to them because they haven't accepted their customs. A lot of the Primaris Marines actually look down on this, like, what the hell is going on? They fought with the Indominus Crusade, with Gilliman and stuff like that. Some of them, look at Dante and like, is this really a commander? It's like an old kind of man, which some of the firstborn Marines take great offense to, because Dante is an absolute hero in their eyes because what he's achieved. But these Primaris Marines don't understand that because they're new to this whole situation, this whole get-up, let's say. So Dante explains to everyone that he wants to take the Primaris treatment because he wants to, heal the men's with the Primaris Marines and the firstborn Marines, get everyone on the same page, everyone fighting together, everyone trusting, everyone bonding, more or less. Now, the council is very outspoken about this. They don't want Dante to take it because the success rate of this is 60%. So there's a 40% chance that Dante may die during this process. Dante's words is, I am not going to let firstborn Marines take this procedure without myself taking the procedure first, because how can I, lead them knowing that they risked their lives for something that I didn't risk my life for? But the problem goes back to that he is the Lord Commander in the North. He's such an important figure now. For Dante to die would kind of bring ruin upon the North, because he is the most noblest, well, I say he's the most noblest leader. He's someone you can trust. It's someone that Gilliman trusted. Gilliman said to him, like, when Dante bowed to him, you don't bow to me. You stand up. I order you to bloody stand up. You will never ever bow to me. So he's such a noble figure, and the risk of losing him at this time would be too much to bear. So instead of going with Dante crossing the Rubicon, they choose Mephiston instead, and this is why we have the Mephiston new model now, because Mephiston was the one who accepted it, and he chose to cross the Rubicon Primaris. Now, there is something interesting about this. When Dante and Cuvo 87 are having a private conversation about crossing the Rubicon Primaris and the success rates, Cuvo 87 mentions to him, at this point, since we just started it, the success rate is 60%, but it will be improving as we, better the technology, as we get used to it more, as it advances. And he actually states to Dante, one day we'll reach a stage where there won't be any risk. It'll just be a normal thing for a firstborn Marine to cross the Rubicon Primaris and become a full-fledged Primaris Marine. Now, there's no time scale on this. It could take 100 years to perfect this. It could take 1,000, 2,000. I bloody don't know. All I know is that I think GW are writing this to future-proof the IP. And what I mean by that is, when we do eventually get new Space Marine characters, whether that be Helbrecht, Grimaldis, Azrael, whoever it may be, it's there now. So when they do cross the Rubicon Primaris, they can come back to saying, well, the technology has advanced so much that it's not a danger now. And this is why we're seeing all these characters transform into Primaris Marines. Now, I know a lot of people will have some feedback on that. Yes, we'll talk about that in a second. But I think from a business standpoint, they're putting that in there. So when these new models do come out, that is why we'll see them as Primaris Marines. Now, my standpoint on this is that I think there should always be a risk. I don't think it should be 100% you can just cross the Rubicon Primaris and become this new Primaris Marine. One of the things that we've discussed a lot in this channel is actually characters and individuals crossing the Rubicon Primaris. We haven't really seen a downside to it as of yet, even though we've been told that there is this risk. It hasn't really hit anyone, like, character-wise, but the thing is, are they going to kill off characters during a Rubicon Primaris treatment? How crap would it be if they killed off Azrael in a Rubicon Primaris treatment? I know it could be a massive thing in the lore, and a massive thing like, well, okay, this Primaris stuff is very, very risky, but from a GW sales point, from a GW business point, I don't think they'll ever do that, because that is then a loss of models of a character that they know will bloody sell well. Anyway, Chaperonios, that is me done for another video. Thank you for coming. Thank you for watching. As always, I would love to get your thoughts and feedback on this. For those of you who read Darkness in the Blood, what are your thoughts when you heard about this, when you read about it? For those hearing you the first time, personally, I do think Dante will get the Primaris treatment in the future. It's just the way that everything is going these days. Like, everyone is getting this new model basis. Even if he just gets a new model, I don't care if he goes Primaris or not. I don't care if he stays firstborn, just as long as Dante gets a brand new model, because the guy deserves it. He's an absolute hero of the Imperium. I'd say he's probably the biggest hero the Imperium has now, dwarfing even Rubicon Gilliman. I know Rubicon Gilliman's a Primarch at this stage, but he hasn't even achieved what Dante's achieved. He's actually lived longer than Dante. He served longer the Imperium and then that Rubicon has. So this is why I absolutely love Dante, and I just want him to get a new model. I just want him to get the love that he deserves. Anyway, enough waffling from me. See you in a bit, Chaperonios. Have a great day. Leave your thoughts and feedback down below, and we'll have a nice little chat down there, as we always do. See you now, and bye-bye.